Questions from the audience? Bunch? Back there. Yeah, right there, you man.
So I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of discussion about alternative talent pools to find creatives. So where are we finding those individuals and transferable skills?
Stand up.
There's been a lot of discussion about alternative talent pools for creatives. My question for this panel is, where do we find those individuals with transferable skills to planning and strategy? And if there are those areas, where are you finding them?
Yeah, tangerine.
Tangerine. There's always the UN. You can go there. Some of us started there.
Huge here. An ocean.
It's been really interesting for me because I've never been in advertising. I've been in advertising for 2 years, and when I was, I was in magazine publishing for a while, and I started a research and strategy company. And Alex and I were riding bikes. When Alex Bogusky moved to town, I was about ready to sell my company to WPP, to the added value group, to stay in the kind of the strategy and research space. And as a vendor to agencies, I'd had some bad experiences, a vendor to planners. And so Alex and I were riding bikes, mountain bikes, and I was telling him the frustrations of going through with the transaction at WPP, and he said, well, we should buy you. And I said, well, that'd be great, but I don't like agencies, and I don't think I could do that kind of work. And he just laughed and said, I don't like agencies either. This is going to be great. So and what I found was, because none of the people that work with me at Radar were from the agency world, and the person that's turned out to be the best planner, coming in, she's a journalist. She was an investigative journalist. She worked, in newspapers for a long time, but then was the editor of Women's Sports and Fitness, and she's amazing at synthesizing stories, at storytelling, at telling elaborate stories through film, all those kinds of things, but from a very different point of view. And so I think that's, there are lots of other things. Investigative journalism is one place. Some of the social sciences, from our perspective, cultural anthropology, archaeology, places like that.
G20 protesters.
Yeah, G20 protesters out on the street.
Adbusters.
Adbusters.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's companies outside the agency world have been doing that stuff for years. I mean, I look at I have a younger brother. He was a journalist, worked for Vanity Fair, all these magazines. Nike wanted someone to kind of run a soccer blog, and so they found him. He loved soccer, and he owned it. It was his thing. And as it's grown, and the audience has grown, and he's grown experience in that field, now he comes in, and now they sit him in the planning meetings, and it's like, okay, what does this guy think? Let's mine his ideas. Let's mine his kind of concepts, the whole thing. So I think the companies out there in the world, like Nike's, the really successful ones, have been doing that for years and still do it to great effect. And I think where those people come from exactly, I think definitely journalism is a cool place because they think that way analytically, they're great writers and stuff, but I think there needs to be more aggressive pursuit of those kind of people for sure.
Hashem. Maybe two thoughts on that. One is there's lots of discussion always about the creative output and the strategic sort of input in a way. And I'm actually really curious because this industry used to be, so strategic people were people who had account management titles and business people who understood strategy and led that. And I think I want to see more of that actually and see innovation in that space in our industry. See account people bring a strategic angle that's very, very useful and have strategists be able to say, this is what's happening in the world that we're seeing, and to be a part of what's outside the agency and have that move through. So that's just one specific thing we talk about strategy. I always think, well, strategy, some of the best creative people I've ever worked with are far better planners than anybody else in our planning group, or vice versa. So I think those lines are blurred, and I think we should look to other parts of the agency as well for strategic leadership. There's a woman who wrote a book last year called 7 Days in the Art World, and it's this sort of anthropological look at the art world, and she spent 3 years trying to sort of understand it. And before she did that, she did a year-long thing within an ad agency in London. I forget what it was. It might have been like a Lowe or a BMP or something. And she basically tried to show that, well, planners are really, it's all a facade. The advertising thing is complete bullshit. So she's going to penetrate it and prove what a sham it was. And she did that, and she actually became one of the really great planners there. And she actually proved what it was, what it meant is that planning should be people with really diverse experiences. A journalist who's trying to do an investigative report is actually a really great planner. And so she had that discovery, and her whole book about that was very much about this. So it's very unexpected where great strategy can be developed.
That's a great point. I saw some other hands there too, yeah.
Obviously, the title's creating digital culture. Do you guys see the digital culture starting to shift in terms of the talent pools, like the kids that are coming out of college? One thing I'm particularly interested in, evident on this panel, and without hesitant to say this without you guys getting defensive, but you are all men, and there's very few women that are in digital culture. Do you see that shifting, or do you see different types of people who may be entering this because they are attracted to innovation, change making, kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the title, Creating Digital Culture, like I said before, we're all coming from different places, you know what I mean? As a purely digital, maybe a little advertising and maybe a little marketing company, like our company's over half women, and the people that come in now that are growing up digital, like the kids that are coming in it's totally a lot of digital, and we see it also in in other departments where they do come to digital because it's a little bit more egalitarian in that way.
Yeah.
So we see it on both sides. The kids, it's exact, like it's just a non-issue, you know what I mean? They come in, they're about half and half, half our developers are women, you know? And then the people we get from agencies a lot of them are sort of like escaping that and coming to a more egalitarian world, for truth or not, but it's definitely part of their thinking.
Yeah, RJ is the same way. I mean, when just spending so much time in the traditional world, it was mostly men, and also mostly just white men. And you go to, I came into RGA, and I was, I would say it's like 50-50 men and women, and quite a few women on like the interaction design side of it.
Yeah.
And it just even add to where strategy is coming from. I think from the interaction designers, there's so many great insights, and we've been pulling some great insight planners from the interaction designers, because they spend so much time thinking about why someone's going to click on something or where they're going to go through an experience and building that experience.
Yeah, our XD department, freelance and full-time, is predominantly women. I think there's one man, two.
Love you guys.
I think there's absolutely right. The talent that's coming into the industry, the skill sets, completely diverse, both internationally, gender, any measure. I still find that the agencies are still structured and run at the top. You still have a very biased environment. Bias is maybe not the right word, but just a very clear sort of lean one way or the other, and that still hasn't changed. Even at the most innovative companies, there still is, I think, a male dominance.
Well, I think